Hey, everybody. It's been a while. It's been a minute. We are here with Divorce Happy Hour, the Divorce Happy Hour podcast. And I'm so sad to say that it has been a while since we were here, but we're relaunching. I'm your good old friend, Christina Previn, and joining me today is my other half, John Locklinger, the other half of Netsquire.
Definitely not the better half, but the other half nonetheless.
It depends who you ask. Um, so we wanted to come on here and reintroduce ourselves. We have, I guess, taken a hiatus that maybe was a lot longer than we anticipated. Many of you may know that we have the Divorce Happy Hour podcast, and that still is up and running. But we want to be more present, and we want to start publishing more regularly like we used to do, and connect with all you fine folks and give you the information that you maybe you've been missing out on for a past year. And we're going to do that by joining you every Friday at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time right here on the Facebook. We'd like to eventually branch out and be on Instagram too, but for now we're here on Facebook, and we're going to do Divorce Happy Half Hour. See what I did there? That was very clever. Because we know that y'all have a short attention span and you're busy people and you have things to do, and maybe this is your lunch break, but we're going to come on here every Friday at 12:30 and kind of just give you some nuggets about divorce and divorce related topics. Of whether you're thinking about a divorce or it's something that you're experiencing now. We want to help you and give you information along the way. And it's not always about like alimony or child support, but sometimes just life things, right? Like John is a divorce coach. For those of you who don't know, he coaches men going through divorce. And John, you probably don't even really talk about divorce specifically. It's more like life adjustments, right?
Yeah, pretty much. What is more mindset, like what your mindset needs to be going through a divorce, which is just as important as the legal aspects of going through a divorce.
Yeah,
I
totally.
think anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that applies to pretty much anything in life, right?
Mhm.
But we also wanted to use this opportunity to introduce Netsquire. Netsquire has been a thing now since, well, at least this year. And we never had like a big launch, like a big fancy grand opening or anything like that. We've just been kind of, dumping on Facebook and Instagram and just letting people know that we're here. But we wanted to really introduce it more properly and explain really what Netsquire is and what we do at Netsquire, and who we can help. So I wanted to spend today's half hour just really talking about that. What do you think, John?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just before we got on here, I just spoke to a new client who contacted us because their spouse and them are very amicable. And what I mean by that is they're both on the same page, that they both want to be divorced, that they don't want to fight. And they contacted us because they really want that to be reflected in the process. They want to just sit down with somebody and they just want to work through all their issues. So we developed Netsquire for all those people out there who are sort of on that sort of wavelength, that their spouse and them both want to be divorced. They're not, pissed off at each other. They're not fighting, but they're kind of like, we both want to be divorced. We just need somebody to help us through this process. So our entire thought in putting together Netsquire was that people don't need to go just hire an attorney and spend $7,500, $10,000, and then have their spouse go do the same thing, to have attorneys spend months and months and months going back and forth, when two people really just need to sit down with each other and either use a mediator, which I'm the mediator for Netsquire right now, or they just need to sit down with a list of items that they need to work out amongst themselves and just have an experienced attorney put it into a legal document that they can both sign and then be divorced. And we think, and we titled today's divorce half hour we titled it that divorce is easy because it doesn't have to be difficult, and people lose sight of that. And so I love when I talk to someone who calls and they're like, I have a simple divorce, which of course I laugh when I hear simple divorce because everyone thinks simple divorce means something different. To me, that just means you and your spouse are on the same page that you want to be divorced. And once that happens, I can tell you, you are a perfect candidate for Netsquire. Once you and your spouse both agree, listen, we want to be divorced or we don't want to fight. We don't want to spend all of our money. We want to find a way to resolve this. You are exactly who our program was built for and who we want to help and who we can help. And that's who we're really speaking to today.
Couldn't have said it better myself, John. Just to add to that, I really like telling people how we started Netsquire and why we do this. You and I both have been practicing law for almost 20 years now, exclusively divorce and family law. So we know what we're doing. We've seen a lot. We've done a lot of divorces, and a lot of the same issues come up in most divorces. Like whatever your problem is in your divorce, whatever your issue is that feels like maybe it's overwhelming to you as a couple, we've dealt with it before. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's been ways that other couples have handled those very situations. And we would get people that would come to us in our traditional litigation firm that just needed some help. They did not want to spend a lot of money. Maybe they couldn't spend a lot of money. They just didn't have a lot of money to spend, but they knew that they needed some help. And you should have help during a divorce. It is a legal process. And I think everyone should have some legal help while they're going through that. But they wanted lawyers and they just couldn't afford it, or they just didn't want to spend what you typically would have to spend if you just find someone on the internet and go get your own lawyer. They're going to ask you for, most of them are going to ask you for a $5,000 retainer. And that's just for one of you. So each of you has to go to an attorney and pay them the typical $5,000 retainer. And that's not a flat fee. That is, sign up, we'll get you started for $5,000, and then you're on the train and the train is going, or the bus or whatever. It's out of the station. And we don't have a lot of control after that. We can talk about that more in other episodes, like how to keep control. But, once you're on that litigation train, it's just kind of, there's no itinerary. You don't exactly know where it's going to go and you don't know how much it's going to cost. So for that reason, we would have to quote people $5,000 retainers, and then they would want to know, well, is it definitely going to be done with $5,000? And we can never promise somebody that because we don't know. It really depends on the people. So if the couple is committed to keeping costs down, doing this as amicably as possible, and just getting it done in a peaceful way, then we can do that. Netsquire can accommodate that, but most law firms just can't do it. And we recognized as divorce lawyers that we didn't have something good to offer people who fell into that category. The people like Netsquire clients that just want it to be done and don't want to spend a lot of money, but just need some help. There wasn't anything for them. And, we get it. We understand what law firms are going through that, have, I'm just going to be really honest. They have a lot of overhead. They have a building, they have an office, and they have staff, and they have all these expenses. I mean, you have to be mindful of that when you run a business. And that's part of the reason for the $5,000 retainers. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense for those firms to take on a case where it's not going to be litigation because they don't make money from it. So we really saw the weakness in the system, and we wanted to create something that could help people, that could really help those people that don't have a lot of money to spend and just don't need to, because there just wasn't anything for them. And I do truly believe that everybody should have access to legal help when they're getting a divorce, because it is a somewhat complicated proceeding. not to us because we do it all the time, but to the average person, you don't know what things need to be in your settlement agreement. You don't know what the consequences are of just slapping something together that you downloaded off the internet. It can have devastating effects if it's not done properly. So we're really proud of Netsquire that we can provide, fill a gap, if you will, that's in the system. And while we're on this subject, I want to point out too that we are often very horrified, John and I, by some of the alternative services that are out there. You can Google easy divorce or, similar search terms and try to find services online that claim to do your paperwork for you or provide you forms for really cheap. Like I've seen ridiculous prices like $2.99, things like that. I beg you, please don't spend your money on those things. They really aren't doing much for you. Yeah, they're cheap, but I like to say you get what you pay for. What are you really paying for? You're just getting forms that every single person who downloads the form, they're getting the same form. It's not tailored to you. And most of the people that are doing these things, they're not lawyers. There's one that I know of. I'm not going to say names, but there's one service that I know of that they claim to be paralegals. And I don't even know if they are paralegals, but a paralegal is not an attorney. A paralegal is not authorized to be giving you legal advice about your divorce and preparing forms for you without the supervision of an attorney who's licensed in the state. So be very mindful of those things. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a client who used one of these services and it did not go well for them. And then we were hired to fix it. And they ended up spending more money than they really should have. So, so I got that out off my chest. And, beyond that, though, I wanted to kind of talk about a few other things, like exactly what we do. Like, what does it look like when you sign up with us? And to kind of piggyback on what John's already said, when we say amicable, it does not mean that you have to be besties. Okay. You can still hate your spouse, right? Like, I mean, I don't want you to hate your spouse, but we know that when people are going through a divorce, it's a stressful time. Maybe you're not exactly loving each other right now. But it'll get better. I promise it does get better. But when we say amicable, what we really mean is that both people are committed to making the process not totally suck. Like that's really as clear as I can put it. And both people are committed to getting it done efficiently, and not spending a ton of money on lawyers. So that's really who is a good fit for Netsquire.
Yeah, I would say too, we talk about these cheaper services or these cheap services that are out there. I mean, we could have an entire episode of Divorce Happy Hour where we just give case studies of all these people that we have personally seen and how it took more effort to correct the issues than it would have taken in terms of money and time than it would have taken if they had just come to us at the beginning and paid a little bit more for a better product. And it's really sad when we see those situations because people are led to believe that these forms that they receive or these places websites where you just fill out a questionnaire and they produce something that actually solved all of your issues and it resolved everything. I really feel like that's sad, and it's because we're all caught up on the cheapest thing. Cheap, cheap, cheap. I want cheap, cheap, cheap. We get calls. We've got calls all the time when we were still a litigation firm where people would say, "Well, I just want to know how much you cost." And that really misses the mark because you're going through a divorce. If you have kids, it's even more important. But this is your life. This isn't just, you're not out there buying like the cheapest rug for your house. It's your life. And if you don't go to somebody who knows what they're doing, that's providing you a good quality service, that's drafting documents that will protect you and protect your spouse, and protect your children, then you're wasting your money. It doesn't even matter how much it costs. If it's 300, 400, 500, if you're not getting a good quality service, you're wasting your money and you're going to end up spending more money in the future and more time. Whether it means you're going to hire an attorney or whether it means you're fighting with your spouse because you have an agreement that didn't actually do what you thought it was going to do. And now you guys are fighting and you're spending all this emotional energy fighting with your spouse when you could have just had a proper agreement done that would have resolved all of your issues. So I just want everyone listening, do not mistake cheap for good ever. And, the benefit of Netsquire is that you're getting attorneys that have been doing this a long time that are helping you. And that's the key here is we're helping you. This is not we don't give you a questionnaire and say fill this out and you never hear from us again. We work with you to make sure that the agreement is put together correctly, that you understand that any questions you have, we can answer about what's in this agreement, and then we help you get divorced. And that's the difference is that you're whether you're getting a mediator or an attorney, and on a future episode we'll go into the difference and go into mediation a little bit more because that's like a
Yeah.
whole 30 minutes by itself. But you just have to understand these other systems out there that you're going to see that are like cheap. All they are, and Christine already said this, all they are is giving you forms to fill out and sending you on your way. That's it. That's it. Forms to fill out, send you on your way. Good luck filing them in court. Good luck making sure that they cover everything they need to cover. That's all they are. We are there to make sure every issue is addressed and it's addressed correctly. And we make sure everything is filed correctly the first time so that you don't have a situation where you filed everything and now the court's like 6 months later hasn't done anything. And you're like, why hasn't the court done anything? I just got a call the other day with this exact same fact pattern. Why hasn't the court done anything? Well, because you didn't file everything you were supposed to file, because they used a system from some website in California that doesn't know New Jersey, that doesn't know how we operate here. And so you've got New Jersey attorneys who know what we're doing. We make sure everything's covered correctly, protect you, protect your spouse, protect your children. And guess what? You're going to be able to be more peaceful moving on to the next chapter of your life. And I cannot emphasize enough that if you're price shopping for the cheapest thing out there, as Christina already said, you will get what you paid for, and this is your life. Do not discount shop for your life. Just don't do it.
Yeah, the example I love to give is if you needed open heart surgery, I mean, you're not going to call around to the doctors like, yeah, hi, I'm just wondering how much you charge for open heart surgery. You're going to just go with the one that charges the least. I mean, it's really silly. And I'm not trying to say that getting a divorce is like having open heart surgery. I mean, it's not quite as bad as having open heart surgery, but I will commit to this statement though. The effects can be as lasting. Okay. So, it's not like just going to get your oil changed. It's important. You want to make sure that this document that you ultimately both of you sign, that it addresses everything that it needs to address, and that it reflects what the two of you have spent your time thinking about and talking about and resolving for the benefit of your family. I can give a little example too. I recently had someone who had used one of those alternative services, and the people owned a house. They had agreed on various things about the house. And one of those things was that one party was going to pay the other for a buyout, and it had a dollar amount, which I won't even get into the dollar amount because that didn't make sense. But the really disturbing part of it was that there was absolutely no provision about when the spouse would get the money, when the spouse would be removed from the mortgage, and there was absolutely nothing in there that the spouse would even be removed from the mortgage at all. So, I mean, that could potentially have been devastating for the one that was leaving the house, because they're just leaving and they're staying on the deed and the mortgage, and their ex-spouse gets to live there forever, and you have no recourse. I mean, it really it was a terrible result. we were able to resolve some of those issues, not all of them, because the people had already signed it. So I could fix some of it, not all of it. And I just really just tell you this to kind of not to scare people, but just to demonstrate to you that this is important and please take it seriously. That doesn't mean that you have to go get lawyers and spend tens of thousands of dollars. We do not encourage fighting. We just encourage you both to be smart and informed and educated and make good decisions for yourselves and just have someone knowledgeable help you through that. That's really what we do at Netsquire. So I know a lot of people that call, I don't know about you, John, but I get on the phone with a lot of people that are sort of like, okay, well, we want to get divorced. We know we wanted this to be amicable and simple. Like, what do we do now? So why don't we just address that? Like, let's tell people, if that's you, what do you do now? And how do you get started with Netsquire?
Sure. So there's really two major roads that you can go down when you come to us. One is where you sit down with a mediator who will walk you through everything, and where you can sit down and just walk through the issues one by one, talk about them with the mediator helping you discuss them, and then get to a point where you have an agreement. And then the other road is where you and your spouse sit down and you're able to go through, and we can give a checklist of all the things you have to resolve, but you have to be able to sit down with your spouse and come to an agreement between yourselves that is detailed enough that you can tell us what your agreement is so that we can put it into a document that you both will sign. So really, when you come to us, that's the first thing that you have to figure out is, have you and your spouse sat down, or you're capable of sitting down and sort of talking through all these issues on your own without someone guiding you, so that you can tell us what your agreement is and we can take it from there? Or do you need somebody to help you actually sort of go through all the issues and talk through everything with you and your spouse? Sometimes it's a matter of preference. Sometimes it's a matter of necessity. Like sometimes you both want the divorce, you both want to keep your costs down, but really you guys need somebody to kind of play referee and help you through everything. Sometimes you just want to keep your costs down. And so you and your spouse decide, listen, we're going to go through everything ourselves. But you have to decide which of those processes is best for you. And once you do, then what you're going to do is, and I think Christine already put the website on the screen, but we have gethappydivorce.com where you can go to and you can get access to our page where you can sign directly up for our packages. In other words, you don't have to actually talk to anybody to get started. If you feel like you understand what these packages are already, based on what we're talking about today, or based on all the videos that you'll see on the site, you can go ahead and sign up and get started immediately. If you have a question about whether or not you and your spouse, it's really the best, which package is best for you, then you can have a quick call with someone from our team and we can discuss which package is best for you. And actually, I think Christiane put the another site on your screen right now, which is actually the direct link to the page where you can sign up. If you go to the other site, gethappydivorce.com, you'll also be able to end up on our sales page. But if you want to go straight there, it's the other link that she put up. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, we want to make this as easy as possible for everybody. If you don't want to, schedule an appointment and wait, and you and your spouse are ready to get going, you sign up right there. If you want to sit down with a mediator like me and work through all your issues, not only can you sign up directly online, you can schedule your mediation session right there. Like the time that you and your spouse are going to sit down with me over Zoom, you can schedule it right then and there. So we have tried to make this as easy as possible. But I recognize, and I think, Christina, you can address this, I recognize that not everyone understands which path is the best for them, which is why we still encourage you, if you have any concerns or you're not quite sure, to have a quick call with us so we can sort of make sure we're getting you into the right package for your circumstances.
Yeah, and and we have sort of a separation of powers here at Netsquire
Mhm.
right now. John does the mediation, and if John does the mediation with you, then he would also draft your settlement agreement, because it just makes sense since he's been working with you for up to 3 hours to settle all of the issues in your case, and then you would both review that document. You can go to other attorneys to review it before you sign it if you want to. Some people want to do that, some people don't want to do that. But we always recommend that you do that because it is a legally binding document that, once you sign it, it's binding. And there are, very few occasions or reasons to disturb any aspect of it. Maybe we can go into that in more detail on another show. But once you sign it, it's a done deal. So if you want to have another attorney review it before you sign it, you can do that. But whatever the case, when you both are comfortable and ready to sign, you sign the document. And then, and this is where we differ a little bit from the way some other mediators handle it, we will file your pleadings. And basically what that is, I don't like to use fancy legal jargon because people don't always know what that means, and I like to just use plain language. But most people going through this knows what a complaint for divorce is. You know that you have to file one to get into the court system and actually get a divorce. So we file that for you. We'll prepare those documents for you, and there's some other things that go along with it. We'll prepare those for you. You just cooperate by signing the papers and we file it. So we are actually doing all of that work for you. We know that it's overwhelming to just, this is what we used to have to do when we had a traditional litigation firm and we had to say no to people. I would just tell them, well, go to the New Jersey Judiciary website and download the pro se forms. They're so confusing. I mean, even an attorney going through them, I mean, it's like 50 pages. I just think the average person who's overwhelmed, isn't a lawyer, doesn't know a lot of the terminology and the process, and this is already stressful for you. It's You really don't have to do that. I know it's overwhelming, but you don't have to do all that. Let us do it for you. So we prepare all the papers, we file the papers, and then we keep following up with the court to get you your final judgment of divorce, because you're not actually divorced until you have a final judgment of divorce. So we do that with you. So, in those cases where maybe you don't need mediation because you're in agreement on things, maybe you just don't have much that you even have to resolve. Like the easiest case is one that where there are no children, or maybe the children are grown, they're like 30 years old, there's no child support or custody issues, and you don't have property together that's joint. You really just want to go your separate ways and keep what each one of you has. um that's easy. That's, you don't need mediation most likely. So I draft the settlement agreements on those. And I don't know, John, I mean, do you think it's kind of 50-50 right now?
Yeah, I think it is
Don't
50
you get-
50. Yeah, I mean, I think that, if you have children, all right, and I'm just gonna make a blanket statement. I think if you have children that are younger than 18, in other words, school age children, I think more often than not, mediation's probably the best route for you, just because there's so many more issues to talk about with the kids that maybe you're not gonna think about. Because as a mediator, I kind of look at this document as a guide for the next 18 years if you have kids.
I
And
like
how
that.
and because I tell people, I don't want you to ever have to think like, well, what should we do here? This document can address everything. I mean, we can address college even when your kids are 2 years old. It may be not how you're going to divide it, but maybe like what the process is going to look like. Like, when are you going to meet? What documents are you going to exchange? Blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you can do, so really, it is 50-50. But Christine is right. If you have a simpler situation, particularly if you don't have kids, you can usually sit down and resolve everything. But at the end of the day, We just want everyone to realize that there is a better way to do this than to just running to attorneys and hiring them and just going down the regular process. If you have any questions about whether or not our programs would work for you and your situation, or which program's the best program for you, book a call with us to have a talk. I think Christina already put it on the screen how you can make a appointment with us just to talk about things, and let us help you get through this process quicker, less expensive, and most importantly, we're going to help you get through this without fighting with your soon-to-be ex-spouse, so you can move on with your life.
I couldn't have said it any better. Okay, so that we are going to try to keep these like strictly limited to 30 minutes. It's divorce happy half hour. Remember, it's half hour. So we want you guys to, go on about your day. Come back here next Friday at 12 p.m. and 12:30 p.m. And we will be talking about various topics related to divorce and how you can have an easy divorce. We'll see you next time. Thank you.